Page number 4, the last lesson from Flamingo. My last French lesson. Why? I hardly knew how to write. I should never learn any more. I must stop there then. Oh, how sorry I was for not learning my lessons. For seeking birds' eggs or going sliding on the Sar, my books that had seemed such a nuisance a while ago, so heavy to carry, my grammar and my history of the saints, were old friends now that I couldn't give up, and M. Hamel too. The idea that he was going away, that I should never see him again, made me forget all about his ruler and how cranky he was. So here, Franz, that little boy, he understood the value of his own mother tongue. He understood what mistakes he had done before, how irresponsible he was to learn his own mother tongue, French language. Poor man, it was in honor that this last lesson that he had put on his fine Sunday clothes, and now I understood why the old men of the village were sitting there in the back of the room. It was because they were sorry too that they had not gone to school more. It was their way of thanking our master for his 40 years of faithful service and of showing their respect for the country that was theirs no more. So finally, he had understood everything. It was clear to him. Him means France. Now he had understood that why the common people, why the villages were sitting at the back, because the villagers or the common people, they have understood their irresponsibility of not taking care of their words, not talking to their teacher to understand the importance of the language French. While I was thinking of all this, I heard my name called. It was my turn to recite. What would I not have given to be able to say that dreadful rule for the participle all through very loud and clear and without one mistake? But I got mixed up on the first words and stood there holding on to my desk, my heart beating and not daring to look up. So finally, when his name was called out to recite, he said it. Only he made few mistakes, otherwise he did it better than other days. I heard M. Hamel say to me, I won't scold you, little Franz. You must feel bad enough. See how it is. Every day we have said to ourselves, bah, I have plenty of time. I will learn it tomorrow. And now you see where we have come out. Ah, that's the great trouble with Elsa's. She puts off learning till tomorrow. Now those fellows out there will Frenchmen, and yet you can neither speak nor write your own language. But you are not the worst, poor little Franz. We have all a great deal to reproach ourselves with. So here the teacher says that it is not only your trouble or your mistake, or not only you are repenting, but the whole people of Alsace, they all are repenting because they have not given importance to their mother tongue, their own language. And now, as the province which has been captured by German people, so from the next day you are going to study German language. That is a foreign language to you. So no more you will learn your own mother tongue. Your parents were not anxious enough to have you learn. They preferred to put you to work on a farm or at the mills so as to have a little more money. And I have been to blame also, even not only your parents, but I am also to be blamed. Why and how? Have I not often sent you to water my flowers instead of learning your lessons? And when I wanted to go fishing, did I not just give you a holiday? Whenever M. Hamill is saying it was, I was also irresponsible because I have often told you to water my flowers, and whenever anytime I used to give you a holiday whenever I wish to go for fishing. Then, from one thing to another, M. Hamel went on to talk of the French language, saying that it was the most beautiful language in the world, the clearest, the most logical, that we must guard it among us and never forget it, because when a people are enslaved, as long as they hold fast to their language, it is as if they had the key to their prison. Then he opened a grammar and read us our lesson. I was amazed to see how well I understood it. All he said seemed so easy, so easy. I think to that. So on that day when he was very much attentive, who? Franz, he listened very much attentively to his teacher and he understood everything on that day. I had never listened so carefully, and that he had never explained everything with so much patience. It seemed almost as if the poor man wanted to give us all he knew before going away, and to put it all into our heads at one stroke. After the grammar, we had a lesson in writing that day. M. Hamill had new copies for us, written in a beautiful round hand. France, Alsace. They looked like little flags floating everywhere in the classroom, hung from the rod at the top of our desks. So that means the classroom was decorated. You ought to have seen how everyone set to work and how quiet it was. The only sound was the scratching of the pens over the paper. Once some beetles flew in, but nobody paid any attention to them, not even the littlest ones, who worked right on tracing their fish hooks as if that was French too. On the roof, the pigeons cooed very low, and I thought to myself, will they make them sing in German, even the pigeons? So, because as the narrator doesn't know about it very well, so he has some questions whether the pigeons will also cooed in a foreign language or not. Whenever I looked up from my writing, I saw M. Hamill sitting motionless in his chair and gazing first at one thing, then at another, as if he wanted to fix in his mind just how, then at another, as if he wanted to fix in his mind just how everything looked in that little schoolroom. Fancy, for 40 years he had been there in the same place, with his garden outside the window and his class in front of him. Page number 8. Just like that, only the desks and benches had been worn smooth. The walnut trees in the garden were taller. The hop vine that he had planted himself twined about the windows to the roof. How it must have broken his heart to leave it all, the poor man, to hear his sister moving about in the room above, packing their trunks, for they must leave the country next day. So, as it was ordered to the teachers to leave the country, so they were packing, and that little Franz could understand. He realized the pain, the the emotions that his teacher had with the whole environment, or rather, we can say the whole school environment. But he had the courage to hear every lesson to the very last. After the writing, we had a lesson in history, and then the babies chanted their ba bee bee boo boo. Down there at the back of the room, old Hosser had put on his spectacles and holding his primer in both hands, he spelled the letters with them, you should see that he too was crying. So everybody was crying. His voice trembled with emotion, and it was so funny to hear him that he all wanted to laugh and cry. Ah, how well I remember it, that last lesson. All at once the church clock struck 12, then the angels, and same mount the trumpets of the Prussians returning from drill. So at sharp at 12, everything was, shutting down. So the trumpets of the Prussians returning from drill sounded under our windows. M. Hamel stood up very pale in his chair. I never saw him look so tall. Tall? How tall? Tall means he was straight. He was saluting, he was giving honor to his language, that was French language. He was honoring the language. So that's why when he stood up, he stood straight. He stood tall. My friend, said he, I. But something choked him. He could not go on. Then he turned to the blackboard, took a piece of chalk, and bearing on with all his might, he wrote as large as he could, Viva la France! Then he stopped and leaned his head against the wall, and without a word, he made a gesture to us with his hands. School is dismissed. You may go. So this is how the this story it ends with a very sad note where we can see M. Hamel is giving farewell to his entire teaching life of 40 years to that school, and the ignorance of the students, the common people, as well as the teacher, this all had realized, have understood, had made them understood that they must respect and honor their mother tongue.